friends and colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here with you on this beautiful day, as it turned out to be, if you haven't noticed. So what's so special about the National Library? Well, first of all, I think National Libraries exist over a very long period of time. They usually started their careers centuries ago, and hopefully they will continue operations long into the future. They are neither private companies dependent on a fluctuating market, nor entirely political bodies bound by the changing will of the voters. They belong, so to speak, to a time zone of their own. So over time, they thrive and they accumulate huge, sometimes very huge collections, and develop into primary keepers of the memories of their nations. And they tend to keep those memories very close to their hearts, carefully distributing the privilege to access them. Thirdly, and often thanks to legal deposit acts, they collect and preserve literally everything. They become a sort of museums of the last copy of every printed book, every pamphlet, every newspaper, etc. there ever was. And finally, they deliver raw material rather than refined goods. Although they usually welcome all and everyone to the reading rooms, they first and foremost reach out to the general public through intermediates like researchers and journalists. This is, I think, the general picture of a National Library. To what extent is this picture valid today in our rapidly changing environment of information technology and social media? What does the venture into the new landscape of digital communications do to our old institutions? First of all, I think we have to realize that parallel to our efforts to digitize our collections, and I'm very pleased that Fredrik mentioned our joint digitization of Svenska Dagbladet and the use of social media, we are witnessing a rapid change in user behavior. Researchers and visitors no longer dwell in the reading room for weeks and months in a row, as I did when I was a PhD student. Today, they find what they are searching for through our online catalogs and through email requests. And then they either expect the collections to be digitized to 100% and instantly accessible on the net, or come to the institution just briefly to get what they want with a scanner or a digital camera and quickly return to their home base. The library or the archive as a place where access to content is distributed to our visitors has become less important. The collections are becoming more independent from the institution as a physical place, from the limitations of time and space. When we encourage this process by the means of the net and social media, the first thing we noticed, besides from demands for even more digital content, of course, is that openness tends to lead to a loss of control. We can no longer put our valuable documents back into the safety of our storage rooms at the end of the day. Now they are floating around on the net, potentially forever. And my firm belief is that this is a good thing. In the same time, as I realized that the loss of control is a very disturbing phenomenon to some in the profession. Network infinity and the potential to make an infinite number of copies, two of the most creative features of the digital domain, frighten and threaten our centuries-old self-image. We are our collections, and what will become of us if the collections go off on their own, outside of our control? So, instead of locking up, we have a tendency to lock in. We prohibit or restrict the use of scanners or digital cameras sometimes, we take copyright restrictions as an excuse not to make the collections accessible on the net. If archives and collections are to be distributed more freely, we need to discuss this question of ownership. Should we continue to hold on to our collections, sometimes of no better reason than a vague fear of what could happen if we let them go? This is not good enough. We live in a world today where content is king and public is president. And only if we attract and retain attention can we maintain our position. Funding in our contemporary society is increasingly being linked to attention from visitors and users. And without openness and accessibility, new users, and without users, we will not be able to fund our operations in the long run. It's simple as that. Therefore, I think we need to develop a new self-understanding. We have to loosen the grip on collections and accept that loss of control is necessary in order to attract visitors, and a good thing in itself. And furthermore, it's time to find solutions to the widespread problem of unknown copyright owners and orphan materials, and more in general to copyright restrictions we discussed earlier this morning. In practice, this is absolutely necessary for memory institutions to open up their collections online. But it requires efforts on the political level. Memory institutions doesn't have neither the capacity nor the mandate to do this job themselves. And to sum it up, the rapidly expanding use of internet in general and of social media in particular presents a number of fundamental challenges to memory institutions like national archives and libraries. When the net develops into the primary access point to records and collections, visitors' demands and behaviors are changing. This gives us the opportunity to take on a new role, not only as custodians and gatekeepers to information and records, but also as guides and partners to visitors in an open information society, and of course to work more closely together with partners like, for example, Wikipedia. Thank you.